So if you think about a car, right? A car was we have an engine, we have a wheel, and we have like a carriage. We mix them together, we get the automobile.
Right.
Um, and most creativity is in that second bucket. And I'd say about 90% of what we're doing is really doing that effectively, where you're taking stuff that exists and permuting it or mixing it in a way that is interesting, unique, and creative, the way a normal human being would, right? When you very rarely do you or I, for that matter, invent something brand new. We just take a new perspective or a new mix of things that already exist and apply it to new circumstance.
Mm.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm thrilled that you're here taking time out of your day to invest in your growth and personal development. You know, this podcast is all about exploring transformative ideas, embracing audacity, and unleashing your full potential. Now, picture the future of work as a flowing river full of energy, change, and endless possibilities. AI is a powerful current in that river, reshaping how we create and share content. It's fast, sometimes unpredictable, and in a rush. Authenticity becomes everything. The ideas that stand out are the ones that navigate this current creativity, bold, original, and engaging. Today, I'm excited to welcome back Nick Jain, a visionary entrepreneur and former CEO of Ideascale. Nick first joined us way back on episode 439, where we explored creativity and innovation, and now we're taking it a step further by diving into AI and how it can amplify the creative process. His latest venture, Content Hurricane, is all about bridging AI and marketing in game-changing ways. It's a great conversation that you'll enjoy, so let's jump into our chat with Nick Jain. Hey, Nick, thanks for joining me again here back on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you sit down and chat some more. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me again, Audley. Really excited to be here. And yeah, it's fun to see you again.
Yeah, this is fantastic. We had a great time last time, and we spent a lot of time, really around content around creativity and innovation, which is a lot of the work that you were doing at the time with you with Ideascale. That was a big part of what your work was doing. You've now introduced something brand new in terms of Content Hurricane, and we'll sort of talk about that as well. Um, but I guess maybe for a list, a couple there that maybe not be familiar with yourself and your history, maybe just a quick plug about who you are and your work and give people an idea.
Sure. Yeah, my quick plug is I'm Nick. I have been a CEO of two or three different companies, up to $100 million in revenue between trucking and software. I've been all over the place. When I last was on the show, I was CEO of Ideascale, which is one of the largest innovation software companies on the planet. I recently left there to start my own first venture, my first entrepreneurial venture called Content Hurricane, which is halfway between AI and halfway between marketing. But glad to chat about creativity, innovation, AI, technical stuff, whatever you want to chat about, man.
Sure. Let's start about the leap. I mean, when you're a CEO of Ideascale, I know you're very excited about the work that you're doing and the products that are being created and the direction they're going into. So to leave that into something and jump into something else, which on your own as an entrepreneur, that's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting and terrifying, and obviously requires a lot of family support. I've got a wonderful wife who's helping me through this entrepreneurial venture. But yeah, it's a big change from going from an established company that's profitable, that's growing, that's global with, a team of 100 people to being you and a friend starting something new. It's my first time trying to do this. It's a big shift, both culturally, professionally. You lack the steady paycheck, etc. But at the same time, I felt this was a really cool point in my life and career to try and do something. And B, I think, with all the random stuff that's coming out with AI, some of it good, some of it bad, I thought this was a really nice jumping off point to try something in a world that is fundamentally different in terms of how human beings are going to work over the next 10 years than they have been over the last 10 years. And
Right,
I want to be part of that.
right. So I've always been a big fan of the concept of trying, and so to hear you talk about, hey, let's try this, yeah, you'll certainly get a gold star from me for that because it's something I think that we all will benefit from doing. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, there's oftentimes this fear around failure. Like, if I try this, it doesn't work. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if it doesn't work, so if you try something, one of two things happens. You either succeed and it goes really well, or you fail. And if you fail, if there's lessons to be learned, insights to be gained, experience to be had, is that really a failure? Right? I mean, it's not. So
Well, as long as you didn't go bankrupt along the way, right? You need to be able to still pay rent and feed your kids and family. So thankfully, again, I'm, in a supportive family situation where I can take this leap.
okay. So let's talk about content hurricane specifically and what exactly it is incorporating AI is. I mean, obviously we know how big AI is general these days, and
Yeah.
I really like the way you said that. How we'll operate the next 10 years will be very different than how we have in the last 10. And so I wonder if you sort of can expand further.
Sure. So Content Hurricane jumps off of something we were doing really effectively at Idea Scale. So Idea Scale, again, was an established company doing really well globally. And we realized we were competing against a lot of people who had just had bigger marketing teams and marketing budgets. And we didn't want to spend so much money on marketing. We wanted to spend money on product. So we started doing a really bunch of really effective content marketing, blogs and videos and stuff like that. That didn't really cost us a lot of money, didn't require a lot of time and effort, but resulted in some really cool results. We were getting at one point 10 to 50x as many inbound leads as some of our peers were. Really, really extraordinary results. And Content Hurricane is the next evolution of that, where I said, okay, we did this with kind of human plus AI at Idea Scale. Can we make this entirely automated? So Content Hurricane is my own venture. It's not affiliated with Idea Scale,
Mhm.
but it is attempting to make content marketing entirely automated. So a human being can just say, I have an idea. And then all of a sudden you can get dozens or hundreds of really, really well-written blog posts coming out and telling your story about your company, your product, your service, your expertise. And the thing I want to emphasize is this is not just ChatGPT, write me a blog entry about, the state of Georgia. It is there, if you ask ChatGPT that, you'll get a lot of really generic sounding. In the great state of Georgia, Atlanta is the biggest city. You'll get some very generic stuff. I think we spent a lot of time and effort on Content Hurricanes AI to make sure that it's putting out really expert level content that is easy to read, that doesn't sound generic, and that will rank you well on Google, which is obviously very important to our customers because you want to generate leads. But setting aside the business aspect of it, I think we just did a really good job on being thoughtful that we don't want to put out generic AI garbage, right? Which there's some great companies out there in our space, and there's ones that are less well, and that's generally true in with a lot of what people are doing with AI. So you have some amazing tools, and then you also have some stuff that's just generically spitting out junk, and that just makes you feel bad.
And I'd love to dig deeper into that point around really the authenticity of your message is really what you're alluding to because um, uh, um, I think early in the early stages of AI that definitely has been the biggest like strike against it that it is generic, it doesn't sound human, it doesn't sound real, it sounds made up, and it's now at a point where you receive these generic messages, you receive messages, and you're like, yeah, that's AI right there, right? And so it really speaks to that human touch, still how important that is. So how do you incorporate and ensure that human touch still exists?
Sure. So I think that there's 4 or 5 things you do. Number one, you have to be very thoughtful about which underlying AI model you're using, whether that be OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or Perplexity. You have to be very thoughtful about that. Number two, this gets a little technical. You have to tune what's called hyperparameters. So there's all these little knobs that when you chat with ChatGPT, they don't show you the knobs, but when you actually use code to talk to ChatGPT, there's all these little knobs you can tune to make it more or less creative, more or less aggressive, more or less funny, all that stuff. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
One such parameter that people often use is called temperature, which is basically a knob for creativity.
Okay.
You want to generally turn the temperature up and give it more randomness, more creativity, because creativity is random by nature. The third thing you do is you have to think about what's called layered processing. So usually when you talk to ChatGPT, think about how you interact with it. You ask it, hey, do this for me. And it comes out with a mediocre response. This could be a recipe that you want to cook for dinner, or it could be a blog post, or it could be a marketing email, whatever it is, right? Or an image that you ask it to generate. But then you say, no, I didn't like this part of it, change it, change it, change it, and you iterate a couple of times. And that's called layering commands. So one of the things that good AIs, including ours, do is not just ask the AI for content, but then iterate it through layers that constantly improve and iterate it. This is obviously happening in the background
Yeah.
without the
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
being knowing. So from the human being or you as a user's perspective, you say, hey, give me 5 blog posts about the state of Georgia. And in the background, we've picked the smart AI, we've done some hyperparameter tuning, and then we have done this layering process to give you really good content. And then finally, there's an optimization piece that happens at the end, which is much more really for Google, so that Google can find your content and it'll actually show your stuff, which is really important at the end of the day, right? You can write the greatest piece ever, but if no one ever reads it, did it really matter? It's like a tree falling in the forest if no one heard it. We try and avoid that phenomenon here.
Right, right. And it's interesting because I was going to touch upon how, creativity is such a really key ingredient when you're creating content, right? Like if content is compelling, creativity is a key component of that. And I wanted to ask about so how, Content Hurricane sort of ensures that component is strong and alive. And some of the things that you identified, it sounds like that layering piece, for example, sounds like that's one of the ways.
Well, the layering piece I think helps avoid genericness and improves the quality of things. The
Okay.
creativity really happens in choosing the model as well as this hyperparameter tuning.
Yeah.
Um, and the way I would describe it is, and this will get a little philosophical, but when we talk about creativity, right? There's two different types of creativity people talk about. One time you just wake up and you have this brilliant flash of insight and you start writing poetry that has nothing to do with your life.
Right.
That's you know that's called creativity from the ether. It just pops out of nowhere. There's a second form of creativity, which is actually what most human creativity is, where you see three different things and you mix them in a way that is new and innovative, right? So if you think about a car, right? A car was we have an engine, we have a wheel, and we have like a carriage. We mix them together, we get the automobile.
Right.
Um, and most creativity is in that second bucket. And I'd say about 90% of what we're doing is really doing that effectively, where you're taking stuff that exists and permuting it or mixing it in a way that is interesting, unique, and creative, the way a normal human being would, right? When you very rarely do you or I, for that matter, invent something brand new. We just take a new perspective or a new mix of things that already exist and apply it to new circumstance.
Hmm. So, so along that vein, I'm talking about creativity, and maybe I'm not getting overly philosophical here, but do you think AI can help individually humans be more creative?
100%,
Yeah.
right? And you can do, I'll give three silly examples. Number
Okay.
one, you can say, hey, help me become more creative. And it'll give you some exercise you can do. You can sleep more, you can read more. It'll give you some stuff to improve your innate creativity. One of the easiest ways is sleep more and read more. That generally makes people much more creative. There's a lot of research on that, dating back to the 1970s, um, maybe even earlier.
Right.
Number two is you can change what's called your iteration cycle. So when you have an idea, sometimes it's going to be a good idea, sometimes it's going to be a bad idea. Not all new ideas are good ideas, and you
Hmm.
can use AI to iterate and improve the quality of your new ideas or creativity. You can say, "Hey, I have this idea. What do you think?" And it'll poke holes in it, or it'll say like, "Wait, it's good oddly. Let's make it even better." That's the second way. And then the third way, which is a little bit more autonomous and which is where we're trending from a product perspective, is asking AI to really own 100 or 95% of the creativity process, where it's not even a human being providing it, but really a human being saying, go be creative to an AI, which is a very ambiguous command. But the cool thing is these technologies are getting there very, very quickly. In fact, many of them are already there.
Hmm. Yeah, go create. I mean, and it's funny that prompt, go be creative. What comes on the other side is that you have no idea what that could be. It could be a bunch of things, right? And it's how you
Which
feed
again,
them.
it's really cool that you can do that. And I think, setting aside Content Hurricane and what we're doing, one of the untapped things that I think a lot of typical people using ChatGPT or Gemini or these AI tools
Mhm.
is they're often telling the AI what to do like an employee
Yes.
rather than asking it, what should I do?
Oh,
Or almost like a boss.
okay.
And I know that's really scary from a human perspective that AIs are going to be our overlords, but there's such amazing things you can do when you rather than constraining the AI with a command, you ask it what should be done. You ask it a very normative statement.
Gotcha. Huh. As you're talking, I'm thinking of my AI usage, and I think it's a lot of do this, do this, do this, right? And
Which is again, everybody goes through that journey. I made that transition about 3, 4 months ago, where instead of telling AI what to do, I'm actually doing some work on Content Hurricane, where I said, AI, tell me what I should do, and I will go do it. I will be the actual arms and legs of its brain. Now, some place I say it's stupid or it's wrong or it doesn't understand some context,
sure.
but about 70% of what it's saying is like, okay, I'm just going to go be the arms and legs and do this because it is right and it is smart.
That you're starting to shift my thinking already, because
As scary as that is,
No,
right?
well, yeah. I mean, again, you want to. Okay, so and why my thought process around is I've always viewed AI as a tool. I am controlling the tool. I am telling the tool what I want it to do. We're now flipping that and saying, well, no, 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 no. We can ask the tool like someone like I'm not gonna go to Hammer and say where should I hammer and how should I hammer. I'm just gonna do it. Whereas now it's changing based on what we were talking about here.
Yeah. And you can give it some very, very ambiguous, not ambiguous, amorphous commands like,
Okay.
help me become a better person, right? Imagine you asked it to do that, which is something I actually did. And I don't know how well I'm doing it, following its advice on all of those points, but it did give
Right.
some really good advice to a very, very strange question you would ask it, right? It's something like you would ask a psychologist or psychotherapist.
Right. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. You got me something to think about. So let's kind of walk through the process, the journey from a client perspective using Content Hurricane, right? So I've come to you and I've said, hey, I want to create compelling content that my customers will find and they'll recognize me as the industry expert and they'll want to use my services or what it is I'm offering. What comes out of that? What does that look like?
So if you came to me and said that, I would have already failed because it's designed to be self-service where your grandmother can do this in 30 seconds, okay?
Okay.
You go to our website, contenthurricane.com, sign up, takes 30 seconds. It's free initially, until you move to a paid plan. And then say, connect your website, which takes about 30 seconds. And you only do that once. So connect your blog, your, WordPress blog, your Webflow blog, whatever. And then just say, I want five. And then there's like three drop downs that you select. How many articles do you want to publish? When do you want to publish them? Daily, weekly, nightly, whatever. And give me a topic. So your topic could be something very generic like apples, or it could be like the history of Georgia. I don't know why I keep going back to Georgia, but the history of Georgia in the 1784 to 1786 period.
Right.
So and that's all you need. So you type in 10 words, tell it how much content, and hit go. You click go twice, and you're done. It's the entire process should take about 30 seconds a week tops. And that it does not require you to understand anything about AI. It doesn't require you to tell me that, hey, I want it to help your business or your company or your nonprofit or your university. It figures all that out by itself. All you need to tell it is generally what do you want it to talk about, whether that be fruits, whether that be about civil war, whether that be about technical AI specifications. And that was
Sounds
like
super
just as
easy.
a design philosophy, I wanted our goal or my specific goal as a product manager there was how can I make this so that anybody in the world who knows nothing about AI can go from sign up to actually publishing useful content on their website in under 2 minutes. That's it. And regardless of their technical aptitude, right? Someone who's not good with if you can open up Google Chrome or Safari or whatever your web browser
Right.
is, that is the entire level of technical aptitude. You don't need to know how to code in Python or know anything about what APIs is or context windows or tokens. None of that.
So this is very first off, it sounds super easy, and I'm certain it is as you
No,
described
it is
it.
literally like it takes. I tested this out with a friend's father-in-law who's like 72, can barely use a computer. He figured it out in about 2.5 minutes
Okay.
because there's like 6 buttons to click, and it literally says press this button, press this button, press
Right.
this button.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious then the gap that you saw for you to launch Content Hurricane to the world. What was happening or not happening for you to say this can fill a gap or need?
Sure. There were two gaps that I think and again, there's a lot of AI content creation applications out there, some good, some bad, right? Um, and we actually do a review on where we're better, where we're worse versus some of our peers. We're very honest about that on our website. There were two gaps we tried to solve. Number one is the gap of this kind of generic, non-expert level content, right? If you ask ChatGPT, write an article about apples, it'll sound just like every other article written about apples. So
Mhm.
that's number one. We wanted to make it unique sounding. Actually, there are three gaps. Number one, really unique sounding, really authentic and relevant. Number two, we wanted to make it really stupid simple from an end user's perspective to create this stuff. So many websites have so much going on. You have all these menus, you have all these buttons and knobs. And we just took that away from you. And we said, we're taking away control to make this, again, stupid simple for you as an end user. You kind of have to trust that we figured it all out.
Okay.
And if you trust us, then we've just made your life so much easier because you don't have to worry about an admin panel and settings and knobs and dials. We've
Yep.
dealt with all that for you. And then thirdly is this SEO optimization piece where again, setting aside whether you have good content, you want to make sure it's findable by Google, by YouTube, etc. And so we spent the third piece, which again, we're doing in the background, is optimizing this content in a way I think that a lot of other organizations have done less well.
I I appreciate sort of the innovative approach on this, and just again making it user friendly, and
Thank
it's
you.
easy to understand, and taking you taking the thinking away from a lot, what what users will have to do, right? Which is also great. I mean, it's great for some. Again, I think a lot really
No, it's
depends on your level of comfort using AI, because there's still a school of thought around people like, oh my gosh, it is taking over, or it's replacing humans, or that kind of thinking. And I think it's important that, are you going to say something? I want to, because
yeah, well, two things. So I can't change the fact that people are afraid about AI. It
right,
is fundamentally changing in the same way that the internet revolution did 30 years or 20 years or 25 years ago, in the same way
yeah,
that the industrial revolution did. So that we're not trying to change that. That's something, people believe or disbelieve.
right,
What we did try and make it was like any tool, whether it be a hammer, whether it be a computer, whether it be an iPad, whether it be a factory machine, needs to be easy to use. And so that was a design philosophy that we said, like, separate from whether or not you like AI, the tool that we are making with AI should be easy to use. And it's just a really good design philosophy when designing any form of tool. Again, it could be a hammer, could be a piece of software, right? If you can't figure out how to use a hammer, the person built the hammer really badly, right? It should be pretty easy to pick it up and
yeah.
say, like, I'm hammering this.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. So I'm curious then, kind of feedback you're getting, or are there any kind of success stories thus far in the early stages
Sure.
of
Sure. So we're really early in the journey. We launched commercially about 8 or 9 weeks ago.
okay, all right,
The good news is we use our own software, so we've actually been performing really. Our best success story is using our software ourselves. We're in the top 3% fastest growing new websites on the internet, maybe top 1% depending on what you measure us against. So we're our own success story. That's number one.
yeah,
Number two, we're getting a couple free trial signups every day, which is again 10 weeks into launch with no marketing budget and a two-person team is amazing. That would put us in the top 0.1% of new software launches.
yeah,
Most people have millions of dollars of venture capital funding and they're spending all on marketing. We're doing none of that. Um, and then the third is just empirically, like if you go read the content, go read some of the content on my website, right? 95% of it is written entirely by AI. About 5% of it is actually written by me. But the 95%, especially in kind of the stuff that we've put out over the last few weeks, which is our version 3 model, I think you would be hard put to say that this was not written by just a very smart, good writer writing useful stuff, right? That's
mhm,
the litmus test. If a person reads it and they say, is this AI written junk? And B, is it useful? And they would say no to the first question and they would say yes to the second question. Not AI written, yes, useful.
right. So you're not only the president, but you're a client, so to speak, right?
Yeah. No, again, like if you're launching a marketing piece, it's the old joke, right? You don't want to trust a skinny chef. If you are, or as one of my colleagues used to say, you need to drink your own champagne. If you're launching a piece of technology and you're not using your own technology, then you're not showing faith in it. We use our own technology and it works. That's the greatest thing. That's a good feeling.
Got you. So the path forward, then, what does that look like for you, Nick, as you continue to push forward with Content Hurricane? What's that look like?
Sure. So there's two dimensions. Number
Mhm,
one is from a product perspective. We launched initially just working for WordPress websites because that's about 50 or 60% of all websites on the internet.
mhm,
And over the next few weeks, we're going to be connecting with other websites, such as there's technology called Webflow, which a lot of software companies use. There's Shopify, there's Wix, there's Squarespace, GoDaddy. So we're going to be integrating with a lot of these technologies over the next few weeks so we can make it work for more different types of websites. That's from a product perspective. And then from a business perspective, I think our next stage is okay, we're getting all these, free users. That's great. Now let's actually start converting them to paid users because
right.
we would like that to happen. And our cheapest plan is like 15 or $20 a month. So very, very affordable, even for a local hardware store, which I think will be our first customer, a small local hardware store. We also
Wow.
have somebody running $100 million company who's testing it out too. So it's very
Wow.
cool that our software works for a range of outcomes. Now our biggest challenge then, not our biggest challenge, but one of our challenges now to convince people, okay, now pay for it.
For sure. Listen, like again, I love the idea of jumping into something brand new simply just on a passion or belief. Again, I mean, if you think about sort of the themes of this podcast and encouraging audacity, that definitely that defines it clearly. So congratulations on that. That's a big deal.
Thank you. No, again, I'm, terrified and scared. It's my first real entrepreneur venture in life, but I'm able to do so thanks to the support of my wonderful wife. And I really do believe that technologies like this, again, ideally ours, but if not ours, like technologies like this more broadly, are going to be such a critical part of how work is done effectively by high performers for the indefinite future now.
And I think that what will stand out is those that can continually perform at a high level on a consistent basis, and and tools like yours and so other AI things that are out there that people are using are what will help. So technology is going to play a bigger part of our life, whether we want to embrace it or not. It's there.
Yeah, 100% agree on that.
Yeah. So for listeners that wanted to learn more about Content Hurricane and maybe sign up and maybe plug their website in, let's give us a plug there and where we can send them.
Sure. So again, Content Hurricane, AI powered blog writer, probably the simplest AI powered blog writer on the internet. Our website is contenthurricane.com, no funny spelling, and takes about 30 seconds to sign up and another 30 seconds to set up one time. So you can be literally publishing blogs to your website in a minute and a half of going to our website. So contenthurricane.com, check it out. Trials free, no credit card required.
Awesome. Well, we'll certainly ensure, Nick, that our listeners are aware of that. Encourage them to check it out. It does sound exciting. I might have to take a peek myself and experiment. So thank you for that.
Thank you again, Audley. Really appreciate having the opportunity to be on your show as well as talk a little bit about both my passions and Content Hurricane.
For sure. All the best, my friend, and we'll talk soon.
Perfect.
Back, we are here on the podcast, and man, that was an incredible conversation with Nick. A few key takeaways that really hit home here is, AI isn't to replace creativity. It's here to amplify it. Asking what we should do instead of telling it what to do can unlock some amazing breakthroughs. And finally, even in a world driven by technology, authenticity remains your compass. The ideas that stand out are the ones that are original, bold, and true to you. If you want to dive deeper into Nick's work, check out the show notes for his contact info and the exciting offerings he's making available through Content Hurricane. If you missed our earlier conversation, you can also find that back on episode 439. It's definitely worth a listen. I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. Just like a river carving its path through the landscape, we can shape our lives by embracing the ideas and tools and insights we've explored today. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe this podcast to help our community of audacious individuals grow. Together, we'll keep navigating the currents of life and creativity, making sure our voices are heard and our stories are told. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.